Welcome to Swing State University, a college golf and lifestyle podcast. I'm your host, James Boone, and joining us this week from the University of Memphis, head coach Blake Smart. I'm not a partial person. Swing State University, we don't show partiality here on this podcast. Whenever Anthony DeShutter came on the pod and claimed that his go-to spot after a tournament round was Freddy's and not Chipotle, we didn't rake him over the coals. No, he's still in the fold. 2 episodes ago, we had a pretty controversial guest on and Easton Key, head coach of Austin Peay State University. Controversial, not on a broad scale, but controversial from a sense of, hey, I graduated from Murray State. That's kind of our rival, arch nemesis. I don't show partiality whenever we have people on the show. There is one instance where partiality is going to be shown, and that's if your family, if your friends, like you're probably going to get on the show. The third one that I am showing complete partiality is if you are a resident of the 901. If you think the city of Memphis is the most beautiful land in all the world, then you've come to the right place in Swing State University, founded in Memphis, Tennessee. This past spring, we had Diego Lorenzo, then junior, now going to be a senior at the University of Memphis, had him on the show on the heels of him winning the American Athletic Conference Championship, and then him and the Tigers going on to competing at regionals and then at the NCAA Nationals this past spring. And so it's with a great honor that we have another resident of the city of Memphis, the person who led that team, the person that's led the charge for the last decade at the University of Memphis. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Swing State University, head coach of the Memphis Tigers, Blake Smart.
Thanks, James. Happy to be here.
Blake, we'll start here. You've had, at this point, 2 decades of experience in collegiate coaching at the D1 level, but started at Berry College up in Northwest Georgia, Rome, Georgia, was an All-American player there, which if you are listening to the podcast that have never visited Berry College, very small liberal arts school, one of the most beautiful campuses in the country, frankly.
I'm going to say the most beautiful.
It's a really, really cool spot. Had a very successful career there. Got on and did some grad school, was an assistant coach there for a couple of years, and then very quickly jumped up in the ranks. Whenever Kennesaw State was making a jump to Division I, Coach Blake Smart got asked to take the reins of the Owls, was there for 3 years, recruited a couple of All-Americans, and then started a really cool journey at the University of Oklahoma with Coach Hybl. University of Oklahoma at the time was not the Oklahoma that you know now. Coach Smart and Coach Hybl took the Sooners from outside of top 100 ranking all the way down to top 20 and being a perennial mainstay at the Division I level. Then from there, moved to Memphis, Tennessee, God's country, and for the last 12, 13 years has been leading the Tigers. Coach Blake, I want to start here with this question. Whenever you were, an All-American player at Berry, if you were to project what your life would have looked like, the journey that you've been on, did you even think you were going to get into coaching? What did that look like whenever you were a senior at Berry College?
Great question. So I was looking to get married. I was trying to make money. I wanted to go to grad school for free. That was really top of mind. I think I just said it yesterday. Coach Jackson and myself are probably the most blue collar coaching staff in the country. I'd be hard pressed to think of someone that's more so. Just where we grew up, small towns. Great childhood. Certainly no complaints at all. But from a golf standpoint, maybe didn't have the most resources, and that's how you wind up at a Berry College. I was a really good student. I worked really hard at golf, but didn't have a lot of world knowledge when it came to what really existed out there. So I played my first AJGA about 2 weeks before school started, and I believe at the time a kid shot 63, and I knew that I was in trouble. So wanted to study and be smart and make some money. So wound up in coaching. Different decision.
Mm-hmm. How much of that, awareness of the junior golf scene at the time do you think was just, like you said, product of growing up in a small town where, early 2000s, late 90s, I don't know how much coverage there was of the game at that point. Obviously, it's kind of boomed over the last few years, but even just awareness of what tournaments to play in, the landscape probably looked a little bit differently.
Yeah, I mean, very limited. Again, some of it was resource driven. The state of Georgia is a hotbed. Coach Hybl that I wound up working for was the number one player in the country. There were guys like Chris Mickelson, some big names that turned out to be really good college players. So you knew there was another level out there, but getting access to it was a little bit difficult for me. So, but yeah, I think as college went on and the game got harder in some respects, and then just sort of was watching the landscape around the bigger schools, and I sort of realized where I sat in the grand scheme of things, and like I said, started to study a little bit harder, and certainly still love competing, and to this day, I can't stand losing, so that has always been there. But yeah, you got to have access, you gotta have knowledge that things exist, and then obviously resources in this game do go a long way.
You said, getting access to an education, that was a big driver of your decision. But at the end of the day, obviously you had that economics business degree, you ended up getting your MBA, but you still remain in the golf industry. You didn't make a pivot. You're not selling insurance. What opportunities were afforded you? Why did you end up, coaching at Barry? And then, once the opportunity came at KSU, obviously that's an incredible jump to go from being an
Yeah.
assistant to being a head at a Division I program. But, what kept you in the industry, do you feel like?
Well, I love my story of I was sitting in a grad school class. It was called career management. It was essentially how to sell yourself and get a job. And the professor said, sometimes you have to let people know that they need you. They might not know yet. And I was like, oh, that's an interesting thought. I'd never really gotten there in my head. I was kind of enjoying the college golf thing as a coach. And so I saw that Kennesaw State was about to transition to Division One. And so I just simply reached out, resume, email, the whole thing, just like, hey, I'd be interested in helping with the transition. If you're looking for a coach, I'm available. Got a response. He was like, no, we're good. We have a coach. Thank you. Fast forward probably 2 months later, guy reaches back out randomly, says, hey, we've had a coach leave, and we're looking
Whoa.
for something. I've already got your info. We've already had a chat. Why don't you come down and let's see if this is something you want to do. So, uh, pretty cool to just, sitting in a class, and, this is back in the day when you couldn't really be looking at your phone. There was nothing else to do but actually listen to the professor. And thank goodness that I
Right.
did,
You were
because
locked in.
it turned into a huge opportunity. And when I say opportunity, another lesson of it was $15,000 a year, no benefits. Um, I lived an hour away. So my first year at Kennesaw, I commuted an hour every single day for 15 grand. And fortunately at the time,
Mhm.
I was newly married, but my partner had a job that we could figure it out. And so I got the call in an IKEA in Atlanta asking if I wanted to be the
Oh
coach.
my.
Legitimately put the guy on hold for a second, looked at her. She said, go ahead. And I was like, cool, let's do it. And yeah, that was 22 years ago, or 20 years ago now.
Wow. That is a brilliant takeaway. It's kind of the idea of closed mouths don't get fed. And there's what could you possibly lose of you throwing your name in the hat?
Sure. I mean, I always said, I can go be a banker. So I felt like the risk was ultimately pretty low. How long could I have sustained that without, getting to a full-time position and making a little bit more money? I don't know. So everything came together pretty quickly. And like I said, I mean, those are stories that you kind of can't make up. It's almost meant to be.
Yeah, for sure. On one hand, it's got to be exhilarating. Hey, I threw my name in this hat. I got this opportunity. KSU's transitioning to the D1 level. I'm about to be a Division I head coach. But then on the other hand, you're 24, 25 years old and haven't been a head coach before. And obviously you were, an excellent junior player and amateur player. What was your first step? What's first order of business whenever you get on campus and you're saying, hey, I'm a head coach of this team? What do you do?
Well, I can tell you my ego was not in check. I think my oldest player was like 6 months younger than me. I was the fourth coach in a year for those young men,
Hmm.
which is not fair to them. And so I'm sure they thought I was going to be there for a hot second. And so we definitely had some big time headbutting. I've always been kind of a disciplined first person, and that was my first order of business, is just getting control of the chaos. And we we had a lot of crazy stories that first year, guys, kind of bucking up against me and me not handling it very well, and all things that were, part of the learning when you're that age. So, yeah, it was sort of head first into what do I do recruiting, what do I do schedule wise. Now, I also will say while I was at Barry, kind of wrapping back into a Coach Hybl story of he was the assistant at University of Georgia, reached out, and they were looking for people to come work golf camp. He said it was like $600 or something. I was like, for $600, I'll do just about anything at this point. So, spending a week in Athens, just being a worker, listening, picking up bleachers, doing whatever was asked of me, and that also wound up playing a really big part in my history of being able to pick up the phone and talk to Coach Hack. Getting into some tournaments that we probably had no business getting into, and it was all just, I'd say, relationship based. But one thing I learned early on is when someone gives you an opportunity, you work your ass off for them, whether it's for money, for nothing. They've given you an opportunity to learn and grow and be in their sphere of influence. You show everything you got and work really, really hard to the point of exhaustion. Because there's a lot of early days for sure where I went to bed pretty tired. But yeah, all those stories start to come together, but a lot of them center on just working really hard.
The piece you said about, gaining trust or establishing, discipline and processes. Hey guys, this is the way that we're going to operate. This is what we're going to do. It's probably a lot easier for you now, 20 years down the road in your career than it was 3 weeks into your career, trying to establish some credibility. And, I could see a college kid at that point being like, well, hey, yeah, you are 6 months older than I am, who are you to come in and do that? So, but, to your credit, it sounds like you're able to move things in a pretty cool direction, recruit some really talented players. What were some of the keys that you had to success and being able to recruit that first couple classes? Like you said, Georgia's a hotbed.
Yeah.
Where'd you look to recruit some of your first players at KSU?
Yeah, I think, at that time it was, we weren't even postseason eligible. So you're trying to talk kids into that.
Wow.
Most of my phone calls at the time were, where is Kennesaw when I would introduce myself. And so it was tough. Georgia, again, being a hotbed, I was trying to sort of get into that second tier, maybe even third tier Georgia kid, and that I identified as someone who could get better. And then pretty early on, I was comfortable with going with some international stuff, and so that worked out with a guy named Jeff Carlson, who was a Swedish kid who turned out to be really, really good. And then we had a kid from South Georgia, Matt Nagy, that wound up playing in the U.S. Open and being a really nice player too. And so just sort of being open to all of it, from wherever, and building it at the pace that it needed to be built. I mean, we all want things to be really fast, but just trying to find good fits. And everywhere I've been, whether in Oklahoma or a Memphis or Kennesaw or Barry, it's you got to find kids that want to be there.
Yeah, for sure. And Kennesaw, Marietta, probably not as built up as it is today. It feels like there's
No, there was
a
still
decent
traffic
amount
on
going
that
on.
hour drive, but it's not as
Yeah,
bad as
valid. That's
Yeah.
valid. That's valid. That's valid. Similarly to the opportunity that opened up at KSU to get you from Barry to there. Obviously, like you were kind of knocking on doors, you were putting feelers out. But long term, did you have any inkling of where you'd end up next? Were you willing to go anywhere? Obviously, you were willing to relocate pretty far from home. But how did the OU thing come about?
Yeah, I think I was interested. The OU part was about Coach Hybl, and we had grown up playing golf against each other and had reconnected at golf camps. And then he went on to try to play professional. Long story short, winds up as the head coach at the University of Oklahoma. And
Yeah.
I sent him a message asking if he needed an assistant. And he responded with, yeah, who you got in mind? And I responded with me. So that kicked off a conversation because, we were fairly comfortable with each other. And I think he was back in Georgia at the time, and we wound up meeting at a steak and shake somewhere and chatting about the job and what it was going to entail. Because at that time, I was at a small liberal arts school. Kennesaw State's a big university, but there was no football at the time. Transitioning to D1. And so I knew if I wanted to do it as a career, I sort of needed some understanding of what a big time athletic department was. Like, what does it mean when you have football? What does it mean when you're
Yeah.
on that national stage and carrying around a big brand? Is it something I even wanted? I mean, that was part of the discovery of it too. So, um, yeah, but I did. I will be fair. I really enjoyed Kennesaw and obviously really close to home. And I went to my athletic director. I can say this now because it's been a long time, but I went to him. I think I was making like $32,000, and I said, if you get me to 40 grand, I'll stay. And he said, win a conference championship, just flat out. And so I was like, okay, great. And so I, relieved myself of that situation and headed over
Yeah.
to Oklahoma. So people love winners, and I hadn't done enough in his eyes at that point. So great opportunity. I mean, it wasn't a hard decision. Now moving across the country and taking on that risk because Oklahoma, I think we were 105th in the country when we got there as a staff. So it was not some slam dunk guarantee. The brand had taken
Yeah.
quite a hit, and we were there to rebuild it.
Yeah. And it's hindsight is 2020, and to look at the trajectory of both of y'all's careers where Coach Hybl takes one of the most prestigious jobs in the country over the summer. It just looks like, oh, obviously, like, they were going to have all this tremendous success. But as you mentioned, outside the top 100, the same question that I asked you about KSU whenever you guys, whenever you got on campus, like what is first order of business whenever you're trying to restore a program like that to prominence whenever you get to Oklahoma?
Then obviously I went there to learn sort of that question, and Coach Hybl had never been a head coach. And so I think I brought a little bit
Mm.
of a skill set of some day-to-day things. Obviously he'd been at the University of Georgia, was very settled in what he wanted to do. But I think he trusted me to like, hey, go take care of this. He didn't have to babysit me. I was going to be able to go and knock stuff out. And then it was just about being on the road. I mean, he set a precedent from day one about toughness and culture. And he's, I think, probably certainly a top 5 culture builder in the country. And that may be softballing it there, but his ability to identify talent is unbelievable. And I've got a bunch of stories about guys that maybe I didn't believe in that wound up being great.
Mm.
And so, hard work, dedication, no sort of BS. Like look yourself in the mirror and tell yourself the truth, and just holding guys accountable. And inside of all that, still, like I think I have a lot of great memories. We had a lot of fun, but there are a lot of tense moments and real conversations, and I think those things can coexist. And that's something I've really tried to bring to Memphis, and just sort of that, hey, we can be serious. I'm going to tell you the truth. You're not always going to like it. You're welcome to do the same thing to me.
Mhm.
But we're also going to yuck it up and have some fun and make fun of each other. And I love throwing some jabs, especially if I'm putting good on the putting green.
Yeah. Yeah. Thinking of the two of you guys being mainstays in college golf and have been that way for 20 years. You guys have earned that right. But whenever you guys were, at OU, you just alluded to it, but what did the conversations look like whenever you were like, hey, I feel really strongly about this recruit, but maybe him as the head, maybe said no. Like, can you explain, the inner workings of being at a top flight program, but then the inner workings of the assistant coach, head coach dynamic at that level?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can only speak to what you know, so I don't know how it works everywhere. I think we had a lot of really good conversation. I mean, early on, we were trying to hit home runs. We had, Corey Whitsitt was committed to Alabama, and we got him to come on campus for a visit. We were trying to get, a guy from Oklahoma State to come down. We were working hard. We were doing everything the right way, but it was just a pure grind. That was the days of Tatum Moore, who played on the PGA Tour. Wyndham Clark, we were trying to get. Sam Burns, we were trying to get. So about every time they put the tee in the ground, one of us was standing there, trying to figure out how to pull that off, because they were all going to be really big deals if we could. Ultimately, we were 0 for a bunch on those guys, and we wound up finding guys in the creases and guys that wanted to be there, were willing to work really, really hard. It all kicked off. Ultimately, our guy that we got was Abraham Answer, who wound up, being a top 20
Yeah.
player in the world, and great dude. Played for us for 3 years. He was He's the best JUCO player in the country, and we were able to get him after a year from Odessa, honorable mention All-American his sophomore year right out of the gate. And so Abe kicked it all for us, and then a part of that was the Brad Dalkey era of committing a 12-year-old to come play golf. And that's, there's a lot of stories there. He was a legacy, obviously, with mom and dad and granddad all being Sooners. So, just, it all has to come together. And guys that I thought were going to be okay college players, like, Michael Schoolcraft, which no one's probably really heard of, but he played in 4 national championships. Showed up at a program that who knew which way it was really going to go, and wound up playing 4 times at a national championship. So really cool, right? And a lot of guys like him that bought in, and we wound up piecing stuff together and being a really nice team that played really hard.
With Brad committing at 12 years old, what were the conversations like? Like, were you in the room on a lot of those? Were you having those conversations? Feel free to share.
Yeah, it's just kind of crazy. Like,
what you can. Yeah.
Are we going to do this? Is this real?
Yeah.
I remember really specifically, it was really close to when we were getting ready to, sort of make the offer or whatever you want to call it, like wrap this thing up. And a kid, I don't remember who it was, but a 12-year-old committed to USC to be a quarterback. And that went across the ticker line on ESPN. We're like, okay, well, it didn't give us permission. I mean, we still ran it. I mean, we ran it up the food chain to make sure everyone was good.
Yeah.
But I do remember, he committed and seeing it go across like a Yahoo Sports ticker and kind of having that, oh crap moment of, what have we done? Like, Pandora's box is officially open. Now, we weren't the only school going out watching 12-year-olds play. It was a different time. Kids could commit anytime they wanted to. So, but it was wild, and he was awesome. I mean, he won. He won the Thunderbird as a 12-year-old, so an AJGA Invitational as a 12-year-old. That was more than Tiger, Jordan, all those guys. So, I mean, it was a no-brainer, but also a little bit scary.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank goodness y'all had the benefit of USC having some first mover advantage to make it a little bit less taboo.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go look up and see who that was. I really can't remember, but I assume they wound up being, hey.
Obviously it's fascinating for a 12-year-old to make a commitment, to make, such a big decision. I think the more fascinating piece of that, obviously his parents were legacies, but the fact that he still honored that commitment. A lot can change in a 6-year amount of time. I mean, that's an eternity. That's literally a third of his life would pass by before he got on campus in Norma, which is crazy.
Well, and I never coached him. So, it was such a big part of my time there was, recruiting him, having his family around, being around Brad, who's a great kid. Family is awesome. But to never get to coach him was pretty hard. I was pretty excited.
Sure. Well, kind of along those lines, you kind of, offered up the segue, like, there's probably a piece of you that, if I'm a head coach at KSU, I'm gonna, I fill the role of an assistant. There's probably an inkling of you that's always like, hey man, I'm ready to kind of have the reins of my own team again. Was that kind of what led you to pursuing the opportunity at the University of Memphis?
Yeah, I mean, carrying around, the big OU logo was a huge opportunity as an assistant, and obviously we were doing some things well, and I wound up getting quite a few interviews. And so I think OU wound up being like my ninth interview. In hindsight, I probably wish I would have done fewer interviews. That being said, you get better at them the more you do, and you learn a lot about yourself and what people are looking for and how to make the sell at the end of the day. So a lot of interviews, but yeah, I wasn't doing all that for fun and to hang out and be an assistant forever. So I wanted to do my part and help Coach Hybl get that thing rolling. And then whenever that opportunity came to find a good spot, because I interviewed at some crazy places, geographically relative. So in hindsight, I'm very happy about some of the jobs I did not get. And there were a couple that stung a little bit, but ultimately I think the timing of Memphis and when it came available and ultimately getting it and where I was in my career, it all really worked out, in a great way for me.
What was your initial perception of the city of Memphis? This was, early 2010s.
Yeah. So being a Georgia guy and being in Oklahoma, I would drive through Memphis, for holiday or going back for Christmas or whatever. So Memphis was sort of the halfway point. So like a lot of people's experience with Memphis, I would stop at a hotel, and that's where we'd stay the night. And at the time I didn't make very much money, so maybe we didn't stay at the nicest places, or which can give you a perception that
Sure.
or dumb on my part for being in those places. But didn't really know much about it. I mean, I think there were also a few not sitcoms, but television shows that had been around Memphis at that time too. So knew a few things, sort of knew how it sat on the river, and that it is a big hub for a lot of things. But yeah, no, when I came on my interview, dude, I went straight to the Peabody. I was smart enough to rent my own car because, for whatever reason, they didn't really offer one. I wasn't there very long, to be fair, but got my own car. And in the in-between times of interviewing with some people, I drove myself around, took a look over everything because, at the time I had a partner too that I was responsible for and making sure we were going to be in an okay spot. So yeah, just slinging around town trying to figure out where things were in the in-between interviews in my little rental car. And but yeah, worked out great. And I think what I knew about Memphis, honestly, was basketball, big time basketball.
Yeah.
And I was so excited because, my time at Kennesaw, the basketball was not very good transitioning. And then at OU, honestly, Jeff Capel was the coach. When I got there, we had some McDonald Americans. I'd missed the Blake Griffin days. Yeah. And then we kind of went on this little lull at the end of Capel's career. And Lon Kruger had gotten the job, who's a legend, but I saw the Buddy Hield class was freshman when I left. So I got to see them play a year. They weren't great yet. Buddy Hield is a monster, and, his freshman to senior year growth is something I sort of kept up with. Just, you hear the stories about his time in the gym and just like them literally having to kick him out of the gym at 2 a.m. or whatever, just putting up shots. So those are the stories you love, no matter what the logos are, right? So, but yeah, big time basketball. I was so excited to get here and watch great basketball, and that's another story about my first few years. The first couple years actually were okay. We had a little bit of a lull, but yeah. So basketball sort of drove my narrative about Memphis. Derrick Rose was sort of the big thing that I knew the most about, quite frankly, and of course, Coach Hardaway, obviously. Being my age and watching that monster play basketball, he was unreal.
Was that I guess that was Josh Pastner. Was he the coach here whenever you
yeah,
came?
Coach Pastner was the head coach here, yeah.
Okay, that sounds right. I remember growing up. Austin Nichols was a couple years in front of me. Yep. This was I guess it was like Joe Jackson, Chris Crawford, kind of that era.
They were right before right before I got here. I can't really name off. I mean, we were still pretty good. We had some McDonald Americans, all that good stuff, but we weren't quite dynamic for whatever reason.
Yeah.
When I got here.
This is a golf podcast, ladies and gentlemen, but
I know.
We can talk hoops whenever. We might have to open it up a little bit. So for the last 12 years, you've been at Memphis. This past season, you guys have an incredible year. I've talked to you kind of off air about, expectations heading into the spring. Some things clicked for you guys. What are some things that you've learned about yourself? And then this is a two-part question. Second part, what's something that you believed as a young coach that you completely disagree with today? So are there any kind of like misconceptions that you had about like leading a team that is not true of you, in 2026?
I think when I was a young coach, like I said, I was pretty staunch in the way that I wanted to do things. I was also fresh out of grad school, and so you've read a lot of books about how to build culture and how to do this and that in school, and some of it applied, and one of my favorite stories is at the end of my first semester of coaching, fresh out of grad school, I had everyone complete a survey, and that was a terrible idea. I wanted to learn about what I'd not done well, what I had done well, where I could get better. And these boys just absolutely roasted me. I mean, about everything, whether it was in my control, and I got so mad. It was not productive, and it ultimately set us back. So yeah, I've learned that, feedback is great. You probably need to have a good relationship if you're going to, ask for feedback. I hadn't earned it from them, again, being the fourth coach in a year, and sort of set myself up for failure there. But I think one thing I've really learned is there's hard and fast rules. There's culture, there's standards. Those don't change. How you get there there can be some wiggle room, and you got to meet each guy where he's at. Obviously, I've had a lot of international players, so I think that's helped me understand. People have different backgrounds, different cultures. Do they understand the words that are coming out of my mouth from the quote? So,
Sure.
and just being a little more patient and letting things evolve at the rate that they need to, and it's very rarely the rate that we want it to be. And so I think those are two things that are very different from 25-year-old me to now 45-year-old me.
Yeah. Well, it's a funny thing opening yourself up to a survey. One, you're kind of running that, like you said, reading the books. You're running it like a corporate, corporate company.
Yeah. Thanks, Harvard Business
and then
Review.
once you
Appreciate it.
thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. It's just funny, man. Diego, whenever he hopped on the show, he told a really cool story about his, spring of his sophomore year, really kind of slumping through the spring. And he had been in the lineup and played pretty poorly in consecutive events. And he told a story about how, you guys sat down together and you essentially told him you can't, leave the practice facility, be here pretty much all day, get some sleep and then come back. Can you elaborate on kind of what that was? And, had you seen that done before? You can elaborate. Would love to hear that story.
Yeah, I've certainly heard a lot of players get challenged. Coach Hybl wasn't afraid to challenge a guy, but the specific thing that I did with him, I had done with other players, always with guys who say they wanted to play professionally. Okay, this was not some idea for somebody who wants to sell insurance when they're done. Like, this is a challenge, a coach to player challenge with you saying you want to be a stud and you want to go do this for a living. And so he wasn't the first player that I had laid this out for, but ultimately all I told him was like, look, I don't think you're working hard enough. You are frustrated, which is great, but I don't think your frustration is based. I think you're getting what you earned at this point. And so I challenged him 10 days, going as hard as he could go. And I left that somewhat up to his definition. I mean, I gave him some parameters, but I told him at the end of the day, if he's not going to bed physically exhausted, if not physically and mentally, then he left stuff in the tank. And that didn't mean you could schlep off on school. It didn't mean you got to be a jerk, but it meant you were going to go as hard as you could for 10 days. And that led up to right before our home event, which which Illinois was playing in, which was the top 10 team in the country at the time. And he wound up winning our home event after that 10-day run. So, it was a coaching genius, not even a little bit. Was it good on him for taking that challenge? Because he was the first person he wasn't the first person who said yes. He was the first person to complete it. And for it to actually, when you do things like that, it's not about winning that next week, right? Like, what are the odds? They're not good.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But it was about seeing growth and knowing what it meant to be tired, and knowing what it meant to really work hard at a different level. And listen, he hasn't always been able to keep up with that. And to be fair, 10 days of working as hard as you can. Like, can you do it for 20 at this age?
Mm-hmm.
Probably not. Should you do it for 20 days or 30 days? Probably not. But there's different times for different outputs. And that's what I love about coaching now. I think with where I am is trying to unlock these little windows at the right time with the right player, with the thing that resonates, and you're just sort of hoping, man, if they'll do it, that you get a good outcome. Because if he goes and plays terrible that next week, then I've got myself in a pinch, right? Because he did the thing that I asked him to do. So it's always a little bit of a dice roll when you introduce anything of, hey, your stance is closed. That's a dice roll. Hey, You're off in la la land. I need you to try to focus. Well, what does focus mean? I mean, you're always going down these rabbit holes, but one thing I've learned is everything that comes out of your mouth, you need to have thought about as a coach, and you need to have thought about it in light of that person, and then you need to deliver it in the best way possible. And listen, that might not be a very comfortable way. It might be a kid with where he's at. He needs the hand on the shoulder and, let him vent and make it about him. And then sometimes that kid, he needs to be told that he's not living up to the goals that he has for himself and just a good cold, hard look in the eyeballs. And I'm a big fan of telling them to look in the mirror because the man staring back at you is who you are. And you get a chance to change that every single day if you want to, and to make those decisions. And it's really freaking hard. Like, I never pretend that what I'm asking them to do is easy.
Yeah. There's a side of it where once they open themselves up to say, hey, I want to play at the highest level possible. Hey, I want to be a professional. Well, then it opens the window for you to be as honest and hold them to that standard, which is what, as long as it's mutually agreed upon, it's kind of like, all bets are off for sure.
That's a first meeting in the year, every single year. Do you want to play on the PGA Tour? But before you answer, as soon as your hand goes up, you are now determining our relationship to a large degree. So just please answer it thoughtfully and understand that, if you say yes, that's a whole different book. And I'm not going to judge you if you say no. There's still our standards. We're still going to work hard. We're going to do the things. But if you're like, hey, I love golf, but I'm probably going to have a life outside of it after this, I'm like, cool. I still need you to play great, but it's going to look like if it's at 6:00 on a Tuesday and the sun's out and you're not there and you say you want to play on the PGA Tour, well, something's wrong there. Like, you should be there.
Do you think at the level that you guys are at, and I would say even down, maybe even to the mid-major level, that player exists anymore? Do you think with how deep, how saturated the pool is of golfers and then how small the rosters are, do you think that player, I was that type of player. I came into the game a little bit later and I knew what my ceiling was going to be. But do you feel like that player is kind of getting cut out of the game a little bit?
Yeah, I think it's the same amount of people on both sides. I don't think the amount of people have changed. I think people's perspective or perception has shifted. I mean, if you're playing at our level, any higher level, your parents, you've put in a lot of hours. You've put in a lot of resources, tens of thousands of dollars, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like, you're all in, right? But does that mean you're going to make it? Heck no. Should you probably be saying you want to? Yes. So I think less kids are probably aware of, I don't know. It's just not going to happen. I think there's a little bit more follow your dreams and you can accomplish anything. And man, that is a great story and it can be true to different degrees, but there's still going to be a lot of insurance salesmen that play college golf that ain't running out.
Yeah, that's true. It's great fallback. Great plan B.
Yeah. And you should have one.
Or
100%.
Or yeah. Do you feel like your intuition, like you said, maybe early in your career, knowing your players well enough to know when to make a suggestion, when to make a change, when to communicate, when to not communicate? Do you feel like that muscle, if you want to call it a muscle, has improved for you?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I hope it's something that I've gotten to be pretty good at. I think one thing is I never take it for granted that I'm doing a good job there. Like, I'm always kind of checking myself. Why do I feel this way about this kid right now? Is it because, I'm being selfish? Am I being reasonable? Because sometimes, I mean, look, coaches are inherently unreasonable people. It's who would do this for 22 years if you knew what you were signing up for? Not that many people. So, yeah, I just try to make sure I'm always kind of checking my ego because I'm dealing with, if this kid really wants to play on the PGA Tour and that is his dream and he's willing to sacrifice at that level, then man, I need to be all in for this kid. So I'm always trying to check, am I doing this for me? Am I doing this for him? And again, is now the right time given where he's at, what he's got coming up, what are his experiences are. And so, yeah, I think that's the part that's fun to me now. I think the fun has evolved in a lot of ways. I used to be a huge swing geek and do all, golf machine and all that mess. And now I could honestly care less about that part. Because I mean, everybody at our level can hit a 7-iron at a pole on the driving range. Like, it's not exciting. Um, but trying to just, man, if I can unlock a little window in their mind to then elicit a response and have that happen in a way that I foresaw at some level, then that's awesome. Like, that still fires me up.
Yeah, that's good. That's you speaking to that evolution of you as a coach and things that get you fired up. That's really cool.
Yeah, the caveat there is I always say, please listen, please try. You won't have to tell me if I'm wrong. Like, I am in it. Like, if I tell you to do something, I am really locked in. And if
Yeah.
it's not right, I'm the one that needs to pull the ripcord, and I will do it immediately, and I will check myself, because we're not going to go down a rabbit hole and it be on me. Like, I'm going to say, my bad. That was on me. I thought this was the right path. Eject, new game plan, and let's try to do this again.
Elaborate why it's important to cut the cord on something like that with any of your players specifically. To admit that you're wrong, you don't have to get specific, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I talk a lot about self-sabotage. I think college, the most important job I have every day is to not let my guys self-sabotage themselves. And so I certainly can't be the one to sabotage them, right? And I'm not talking about, like, we're going to go to the driving range, I watch you hit 3 balls, and I'm all of a sudden going to change my mind about what I told you. I'm talking about, you did the thing I asked you to do, legitimately did it. We haven't seen any kind of trend, and trends are not straight lines, okay? An econ major, so I remember that part. There can be a little
2
dip
degrees
before
2 degrees.
There can be a dip before a plateau, before a slight arch that can then do that. And again, we're just trying to go up over time. And so, if we see either some kind of drastic dip, or we spent enough time and I believe that you worked on it and we did it the right way and it didn't work, then cool. I can eat that. No problem.
Yeah. Let's pivot to recruiting. You and I, both big fans of the city. You've been here for a while. We're both transplants. We're homers on the city. We appreciate the people, things to do. We're pretty big advocates of it, just from conversations that I've had with you. Can you talk about what it is like recruiting the city of Memphis, whether it's local guys to Tennessee or, like you said, tapping into those international pockets?
Yeah. First thing I would say is it's been so much harder than I ever thought it would be, and it frustrates me every single day. I came, again, coming from Oklahoma with a big brand, and everyone knew where you were and kind of what was going on. And if they flipped on something on Saturday, they could probably see. And I feel like I think part of that frustration is I feel like we have a lot of those things here. Frustration, quite frankly, the perception of the city has been hard to overcome. We play a white collar sport. A lot of people are very affluent, and their perception of the city of Memphis, particularly sometimes even if they live in the city of Memphis, can be tough to overcome from a recruiting standpoint. And so I always start local with every class that opens up every June 15th. I'm worried about the guy down the street first and foremost, and then we branch out. I do kind of like this idea of sort of a 250-mile circle around Memphis, which includes more or less a St. Louis, Nashville, Little Rock, down to Birmingham. I think that's a great circle of talent. And those are people who are all aware of the city, and it's sort of in their sphere of thought. And so that's sort of my next wave of guys. And then if none of that works out, then obviously I'm very comfortable going internationally. And quite frankly, international recruiting has been our sweet spot. I'd probably beat my head against the wall too long when I first got here, trying to do more local and regional kids. And I got a few, some of them worked out, but at the end of the day, I was a little too much in that sort of Oklahoma mindset of, it'll just happen. And we've had some really good international. The thing about internationals, they don't have all the perceptions. They can still Google stuff. Like, I mean, you're not hiding anything these days, but we have an airport, 10 minutes from the practice facility. We have amazing facilities. Being in a city, we have great golf courses. We have a variety of golf courses. Um, and I think there's a culture in the city that sells really, really well, because we actually have a ton of culture in the city, and it is a
Yeah,
very
yeah,
unique city. And I love celebrating it. I love telling people when they ask certain questions like, "Hey, I've lived downtown for half of my time. I've lived in Midtown. I have never lived in the suburbs because I want to live in the city of Memphis, and I am very happy about
right.
that. And I love the opportunities that provides me as a person. I mean, I've learned so much. I consider I've been overseas. I'd seen some things. I have several degrees. I thought I knew a lot, and I have. I mean, it's laughable what I knew when I arrived here versus what I know now about the world and about some real life that people are living every day. And so I think it's a beautiful thing to celebrate on top of the music and the food and all the fun things we all like to talk about. I tell a
Sure,
lot of
sure, sure.
recruits that when you leave here, you will have the opportunity to understand some things about the world that you may or may not get if you're at your typical sort of land grant university, university of whatever. I think being in a city, whether it's, going to Northwestern, you could have the same opportunity. Going to Georgia Tech, downtown Atlanta, you could learn those same things. Um, I think you can experience the real world. You're not so protected in some huge bubble here, and that's my sell. And it's certainly not going to be for everybody. And if it scares you, then I don't, of course, I don't want you here worried about
Right.
X, Y, or Z. I want you here worried about, why you're here and what we're trying to do and growing as a young man who's ready at 22, 23, to go take care of themselves.
My wife and I, we were in Chattanooga. This was about six months ago, maybe last October, and we were in a pretty posh, pocket. And Chattanooga is a really cool town. Lots of cool places to visit.
Yeah.
We were in line for brunch, and there were, I don't want to typecast a bunch of people, but just a bunch of people in there complaining about how long the line was and how long the wait was, and being very disrespectful um, to the people waiting on them. And I think one thing I've just noticed from being here over the last 2 years is like you just don't see as much of that. And you could get into the reasons why of, hey, maybe like some people have lived some very difficult stories, but I do think for the most part the people here are a little bit more grateful,
Mm,
more authentic for sure, um, and then a lot less pretentious. And that goes for all socioeconomic backgrounds. Whether if you're affluent or less affluent. I think it's pretty true across the board. So it's been refreshing for me to be in the city, and I agree with you, Coach, for sure.
yeah, it's fun when you travel, I think, too. Like I was just in New Orleans for the weekend, another city where people are, they have a great time. It has its own culture, its own vibe. And I love going down there. There's parts of Nashville that are okay for a minute. Chattanooga's is really but there is something even when I go back home or I'm fortunate enough to have a little cabin in North Carolina that I love to escape to. But man, when it's time to come back home to Memphis and to this place I've lived for more than a decade now, there is that there's that little bit of excitement still about getting back to the city and but it's ultimately because of what you're talking about. It's the people. And I think there's a genuineness that's is real, and there's not a lot of fake stuff going on here. You don't last very long in these circles if you're fake, whether it's
That's right.
at a
That's right.
dinner party at a beautiful home, or you're kind of on the fringe of the rough part of town trying to grab a great sandwich from this little food truck. All of it, you need to be authentic and real and treat people with respect. That goes a long
Yeah.
way in all of these communities. And um, at the end of the day, we're all just trying to wake up and have the best day we can and go to
Yeah.
bed. Hopefully, worst case in the same spot as when you woke up, or maybe just a little bit better. And hey, if you can drag someone along with you and help them have a great day, or improve their experience, I think those things happen here. We're an incredibly philanthropic city, with St. Jude, Le Bonheur. I mean, from a medical standpoint, the stories that come out of here, come on, it's crazy. And so, yeah, lucky to be here.
Come on, man. That was sales pitch. You were in salesman mode. I'm ready to commit. I'll commit on the spot.
Come on,
Coming.
I'll get you a house next year. Let's get you closer to downtown.
Yeah, we need that. Need that. Give me on get well, man. Speaking of recruiting locally, you had a guy that played for you by the name of Isaiah Jackson not too long ago. He's now a member of your staff. Another guy who's, just down the road from Mississippi, another guy who really loves the city. Can you hype him up a little bit? Your guys' relationship and partnership going from player coach relationship to now, hey, coach relationship where you guys are trying to make game plans and strategize.
Yeah, I mean, Coach Jackson is a beautiful human being. He's one of the nicest guys that I've ever met. I tell people I've been trying to make him mean for getting close to a decade now, and I've failed miserably. To his credit, I'm very fortunate to have him on staff. Him being a former player is great because he's been yelled at by me and fussed at by me, and occasionally, if I don't like what's happened at the office or a call he made on the golf course, he still sees that side of me, and he handles it really, really well, which frees me up to kind of get it out of my system too. Let's face it, like I'm selfish about why I'm doing it sometimes, but he's learning a lot. He's growing a lot. He wants to be better at his job every day. And I certainly am okay pushing on him pretty hard because of our past and our relationship, and I can trust him to take the criticism and try to do something with it. And he's getting really a lot better about, when he doesn't understand something or maybe really thinks that my standard or what I'm looking for is something different. He'll come ask, and instead of taking a straight bullet, he'll just step in front and ask for more information and more clarity. But he does a great job with the guys. Again, his personality versus mine, they're certainly going to go to him with some things that they're not going to come to me about. And I think that's what you're looking for with an assistant. I do think he's getting better at telling them no, which, for his maturation and if he wants to progress in this profession, you got to know when to put your foot down and when to give a hug and do all those things. So he's certainly good at the give and hug part. We're working on the other part a little bit, but he's done a great job. He was an awesome player. I mean, he's an All-American for us, which is pretty rarefied air. And at the end of the day, he can still go out and take care of them and hold his own when he needs to. So his street cred's pretty high on the golf course, whereas mine is waning daily for sure. You've been pegging it, brother. You've been getting after it.
That was very nice. That was probably the nicest comment you could have said. I appreciate that.
There you go. You're welcome. See, I'm not so bad.
See, exact case in point. To everybody listening, Flake's smart. Diego, Sean, Christian, Toby, you got a lot of returners coming back from a national championship run this past year. You guys got a few transfers coming in, a couple freshmen. What are some things that you're excited about heading into 26 and 27?
Yeah, I mean, last year, we were a bubble team last year. It was a lot more stressful than I thought it should have been given our talent level. We wound up squeezing through as an at-large. We had a nice conference championship. Diego was freaking awesome and got the individual win and really toted it pretty good. And, I've always preached once you get to the regionals, who cares? Like, you're there, go raise some hell and let's see what happens. And we did a phenomenal job as a team, with Christian leading the way, finishing second. If you'd have told me we were going to advance to the national championship without Diego and Ishan being our 1-2 in some format, the odds were not stacked in our favor. And that really showed the team that we should have been, could have been more of the year. And so getting to go to a national championship when maybe I really thought we were a regional team. But again, once you're on the first tier regionals, I mean, why not? And we did that, and we really sucked it up. It got a little precarious on the back nine of the regional, and I was afraid we were going to let it slip a little bit, but we hung, and got to go to Carlsbad. And what that's really done for us is it changes the mindset, right? Like that feeling, I know we belong. I know I belong. I love being around those coaches. I love being in that atmosphere. Regionals is freaking chaos. I'm nervous. I'm amped. I'm getting after it. I'm having to check myself constantly. I love it. I know I belong. Now those boys get to know that they belong because they earned it, right? I didn't hit a golf shot.
Yeah.
They earned it. And so
That's
I
right.
don't know, we skipped a step. I've kind of used that term, but I think some things just came together at a really good time. And again, nationals wasn't necessarily what we wanted. That being said, we beat 2 top 30 teams. We finished 28th in the country. In my head, I know what our end of year ranking was, but when I met with my boss, Dr. Scott, he said, "You're the 28th best team in the country, and you need to realize that." And I struggle with that because that's, I like beating myself up and, it could be better, blah, blah, blah. But he was right. Quite frankly, he was right. So I've tried to get that in my big thick skull and get ready for this year. The best thing we did as a program is we retained those 4 and we graduated Kean O'Connor. He was a freaking legend for us, 4 years. But yeah, we didn't lose any of that core group that got us there. And in today's age, that's the compliment. Like when I'm recruiting for the city, that's my best compliment is we kept those boys. And so, yeah, very pleased that they're back. Pleased that they believe in us and believe that we can go do something, bigger, better. And that they also believe that they're putting their games and not their future really, because pro golf's a whole different deal, but we're trying to get them ready and they're trusting us with that. And so a huge compliment. That's probably the best part of the year, which I hadn't really thought about till now. So, and then the new guys, yeah, you get me there. The new guys really fired up about Luke Stinnett coming from Rhode Island. He's got 3 wins in college at the Division I level. He's got firepower. His good is really, really good. His bad has, I guess, been a little bit rough. And so we'll try to find that right niche to really help him be a week-to-week guy and ready to go. And we got a D3 transfer, Alvin Sue, who also has 3 wins at the Division III level, a sub 72 stroke average, which are there different golf courses? Yeah, but to average under 72 means you can, get your golf ball in the hole. And he's won 3 times. And we've all experienced it, right? You're coming up 18. If it's the win, I don't care if you're Division I, JUCO, those feelings are those feelings. And he's found a way to quell those and get it done. And then, we got 3 freshmen coming in, and freshmen are freshmen. Come talk to me a month into the season, and we'll see where those guys sit. And they're super talented. We also this year, between the guys we're bringing in and the guys that we've retained, like clubhead speeds and stuff, like we're actually going to be a sneaky a team that can hit it, and we haven't always been that team. So I'm excited to see short par 4s get shorter and par 5s get shorter, and hopefully wedge games and putting match up with that. But yeah, I think we're going to be a dynamic team. I think we're, I'd love to see us just have a really nice, solid year where we're not really worried about at-large bids and being on the bubble, and we're going out. Our schedule's really good this year. We've ramped that up. Some of the tournaments we've gone to a bunch of years have just gotten better fields randomly, or picked up a team or 2 here or there. So that's always nice. And then we're going to Tennessee right out of the gate, which is a really strong field. And then we added Arizona early in the spring, and I think Tennessee finished T8 or 9, something like that, national championship, and Arizona made it into match play. So again, I love our logo. I think our logo carries. I think I'm in a really sweet spot in my career, just 20 plus years in. The guys that I've walked fairways with and recruited with and grinded with are head coaches at some really awesome places, and they still take my phone calls, which I like to think was earned a long time ago, maybe on some cart path somewhere, sweating and then maybe having a beer after and developing relationships with people. So I think we're in a great spot as a program, as a city. And I think, just personally, I'm at that experience level. I'm still young enough that I've got some giddy up, but I'm old enough that I've at least figured out a lot of things that aren't going to work, and I'm still trying to figure out all the things that can work or how to make them work better.
Blake Smart, ladies and gentlemen, head coach of the Memphis Tigers, getting going if you're listening to this, it's probably end of August, and the Tigers are about to head to Knoxville. What weekend? September, or is that late August that you guys are heading to
Yeah, we'll
UT?
leave. I think the tournament dates are like the 1st and 2nd of September, so I think we're leaving around the 29th or so, heading that way.
We're gonna finish up with a game we've been doing in season 2. We've been finishing up our episodes with some different games, some gimmicks, if you want to call it. A major player, like I mentioned this at the top of the show, University of Memphis alum. If you're thinking about famous alums, you can't include Derrick Rose, like he, was just here for his freshman year. I'm trying to think of some others. Isaiah Jackson, very famous, University of Memphis alum. One of the most
Famous for
famous
something.
Memphis, famous for something, All-American golfer. To his credit, um, one of the most famous alums, Anthony Penny Hardaway, who's also avid golfer, is just a stone's throw away from U of M's golf facility. I've obviously not witnessed, but I've heard he's made some trips down there and hit on Blake and Isaiah's range from time to time. Loves the game, which struck
Yeah.
me a couple of days ago. I was asking myself the question. He has a great golf swing, loves the game, plays and competes in tournaments and things like that. Plays out at Southwind and all the nice courses in Memphis. It raised the question in me. A ton of NBA guys are getting into the game. Obviously, like LeBron is literally on my feet on all the time of his golf swing, his improvement, all this stuff. But literally, people I say MJ started the trend. Penny could have started the trend. Back in the '90s of NBA guys playing golf at a relatively high level. So what we're going to do to close out the show, Blake and I are going to go through NBA players' golf swings, and Blake is going to rate them 1 to 10. And we're going to see who has the best swing. I'm going to share my screen. Blake, are you ready to get this going?
Let's do it.
Do you have any assumptions on who will make the cut?
I mean, I just assume there's going to be some athleticism, and depending on their age, that could factor in. If they're young, then probably not very good. But as they get older, maybe some extra time.
Yeah, yeah. And just to preface, I did leave out LeBron and Steph. I feel like those are kind of like low hanging fruit. I feel like those pull up on everybody's feeds a ton. We're gonna get things started with Ray Allen, 2-time NBA champion. Coach, what do you think of his swing out of 10?
Oh, that's a solid 7 right there. Like, great setup, really good rhythm. He looks like he's spent some time on the golf course. Yeah, I'd
Little
take that's a 7 right there. Solid.
solid 7 to get things started with Ray Allen. We'll head over to NBA champ 2026 point guard, incredible run, Jalen Brunson. We got him on the links right here. Shorts are very short. We'll go out of 10. What do we think, Coach?
Okay, it was better than I expected. I'll go with a 5. The outfit, not so much, but I'll give him a 5. There's some athleticism. It's short. It's compact. Not a lot of wasted motion. Yeah, not bad.
Yeah, not bad at all. Not bad at all. We'll go 5 out of 10. That's like a great barometer to compare it to.
Yeah, I'm trying to
Let's see.
room for something really good.
Let's go. Andre Iguodala, NBA champ, played with Steph. Out of 10.
We'll go with a 6 there. I mean, the shape of it's pretty good. Balance looks like there's some rhythm, even though it's in slow mo. But little flippy dippy there, which is not my favorite move. But yeah, he's posing on the outfit, solid. He's got the big swoosh going. So yeah, we'll go right in between those other two with the 6 there.
I do like that outfit. By the way, University of Memphis, very solid, obviously big Nike school. I think one thing that stands out to me though with your guys' logos, hey, even with golf polos, you guys are rocking the penny 1 cent on the sleeves. That is a really
Yeah,
nice
right here.
touch.
There it is.
Repping it. Coach has got it. All right, we're gonna go Austin Reeves.
Nice
Duke can play.
golf course. Been there, done that. Beautiful. I'm gonna say he's right there with Ray Allen. I might have to go a little 7.5. just a little bit better than Ray Allen.
I like
Pretty
that.
good.
Austin Reeves, leader in the clubhouse. Let's go down to Deron Williams, former Utah Jazz lead guard. Let's see what he's got.
Ooh. See, that Austin Reeves shot tracer kind of okey-doked me there because it was a tight draw on the shot tracer. I'd like to see that one as a shot tracer, but
That's a large body of water to carry.
Oh, he wasn't worried about
That's a
that
good
water.
action.
That's what I like. Actually, a little club twirl. Just because of the club twirl, we're going with an 8.
I like that. That's a great action. Deron Williams, man. All right, let's go to the big diesel. Shaquille O'Neal.
Ooh. You know, there's a lot of handicap there. You're 7'2", probably clocking in at 350 right here.
Just tough.
God, oh my. That one hurts my feelings. That hurts my body, actually. I can feel that in my T-spine. We're going to have to go down to about a 2 on that one.
All right, Shaquille O'Neal with 2. That's generous.
Yeah,
All right, a couple more here. J.R. Smith, he obviously had a run. Played a couple years at NCAA. Obviously pretty well known for being a good golfer.
Yeah,
Not a
just
bad
getting
action there. I think that's all we got.
Putt action right there. Really nice speed. Great outfit with the hoodie on. I know he can play. We're going to go 8.5 there. Pretty solid.
8.5. J.R. Smith, leader in the clubhouse. Let's go one more here. Have we done D Wade yet? I can't remember.
No, we haven't.
Let's do D Wade.
Oh boy.
It's
not
bad on the way down.
His fashion sense far exceeds mine, but man, I don't know what's happening there with the pants sock combo. And there's a lot. If he was the size of Shaquille O'Neal, they would be on lockstep for pretty poor motion. It looks like he actually hit that decently solid though. So I'll give him a 3.5.
Yeah, weight down doesn't look too bad, but you're right. The baseball pants, the baseball joggers, those are crazy. That's crazy work. All right, we'll go last one here. We could keep going all day on this. We'll go last one. So pretty iconic human being, pretty iconic golf swing here. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. I know he's been working on his game a decent bit.
Yeah, I got to see what Charles version Barkley of Chip getting here. Oh, yeah. Okay. Again, factoring in sort of size and age right there. Man, I'm going to go with a little 6.5. That's some big work he's done.
That's really solid. No doubt.
And, the shot tracer.
For those,
helps.
Yeah, shot tracer is very generous. I feel like for those who were not around for the Hank Haney golf fix era, those were some rough days for Sir Charles.
Tough to watch.
Very tough. Ladies and gentlemen, Blake Smart, University of Memphis head coach. Blake, thank you so much for hopping on. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, James. Appreciate you.